Hello, everyone, and welcome to All Things Politics. I am your host, Bub. Let's get right into it. David Blackwell, the father of artificial intelligence. I'd like to think that most of us did not know that, including myself. But the fact of the matter is, David Blackwell is the creator of artificial intelligence. I found that very interesting because AI is something that we use every day. And for the most part, a lot of us have a mixed caution about it, a certain concern and curiosity. And yet, many of us use this tool in our everyday life already. All right. So David Blackwell, come to find out, was a black man who was a mathematician of the highest caliber. All right. And that being a fact, and in spite of his blackness or the discrimination that came as a result of it, he still was able to give to the world this apparatus, this tool, which we all call AI. I have a clip featuring his granddaughter on a podcast called Earn Your Leisure. I want to drop this clip and, give you all an opportunity to learn what I've learned about David Blackwell. Astonishing. Just astonishing. Okay.
So you're about to see 10 minutes of what is a concept reel for the documentary that we're creating about my grandfather's story. And it really has a little bit of the sort of linchpin that everything turned around on, like when I start digging into the story and what I discovered. And you guys are getting ready to see sort of what that looks like. And again, this is the concept reel for the documentary.
Let's play it, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay.
National Medal of Science 2, David Blackwell, University of California, Berkeley.
I want to invite you to a free trading and investing workshop right here.
That is something else. Again, if I think hard enough, long enough, I probably heard the name David Blackwell, but I would not be able to associate it to science or him being, again, one of the foremost mathematicians of his time. All right. It's incredible. Very incredible, man.
In Woodland Hills that will forever change.
I would like to introduce you to a very, very big GPU named after David Blackwell.
For fundamental contributions to probability theory, mathematical statistics, information theory, mathematical logic, and Blackwell games.
David Blackwell was a great amongst greats. He was the great mathematician among great mathematicians.
Blackwell was a pioneer who was ahead of his time.
You guys caught that, right? That prompt that David Blackwell was the hidden pioneer of the digital age. All right. Go figure.
I thought I knew my grandfather. Eggs at dawn, martinis at dusk, and a 5% dividend man all the way. Years later, NVIDIA named their platform Blackwell. That's when I start digging and discovered my grandfather, Professor Blackwell, architect of the mathematics behind artificial intelligence.
Game of genius. And I think this is what a lot of us miss as Black people, man, that we're in this game, and this game is actually built around our genius. Now, the game is just a metaphor for life or civilization, society. It's all built around our genius. And just, it puts me in a whole nother state. The vibe is just, electric right now for me. David Blackwell, the father of artificial intelligence.
A lot of his ideas really cause people to rethink, how do we interpret data?
There are many, many standard tools that people use all the time that are named after David. You know, Blackwell spaces and the Rao-Blackwell theorem.
Blackwell nowadays is known for what's called the Blackwell-Rao theorem. Sort of like saying if something happens frequently enough, you should be able to kind of predict what's going to happen next. However, there might be some bias in some of that data. That's essentially what the Blackwell-Rao theorem tells you, is that there's a way you can kind of estimate what should happen, but then minimize the bias that you would have there in the data. And this is an amazing approach to doing statistics. If Blackwell were alive today, he would certainly be the one to raise up his hand and say, you know, look, there's bias in AI, there's bias in the training data that we're using, and we really need to think about minimizing these as more and more people use these models.
I was very clear that I was going to be a school teacher. My father had a friend who was on the school board, and before I finished high school, he already told my father that if I went to college and got a degree, he would get me a job teaching. And this was in the Depression, and it was a great relief to me and everybody else when it was clear what my future was going to be. After I got my bachelor's degree in 3 years, I decided to spend my 4th year getting a master's degree. But then at the end of my 4th year, I was encouraged to apply for a fellowship to go on for a PhD, and I did. And then, of course, my objective changed.
This is a prime example of excellence, man. We had this brother in the time of the Great Depression, as well as, let's say, the time of Jim Crow, you know, all those Jim Crow codes, laws, and policies, who, in spite of it all, decided to get him a master's degree, you know, I mean, damn the bachelor, you know. This individual's mindset in terms of his ambitions, you know, changed in a matter of years, from going to be just a school teacher to becoming this world-renowned scientist. It's deep, man. The accomplishments, man, the accomplishments of our people.
There were perhaps 25 awards. 22 of them required teaching assistant responsibilities. 3 of them were pure fellowships. And everybody applied for both things, and the lucky 3 got the fellowships. And one of my colleagues who also applied told me that I was going to get one of the fellowships. And I said, how do you know? And he said, well, you're good enough to be supported, and they're not going to put you in front of a classroom. And he was
nowhere in the world they'll have him teaching white kids or white students. No way. Still, you know, that was the time of the day.
right.
They were not going to put you in front of a classroom because?
Because I'm Black.
David, you know, he was a Black mathematician, and there are no Black mathematicians. That would that it were, but they're very few anyway. What was it like to be David Blackwell? I never could get him to talk about that. Anything about what his experiences were in Berkeley. He had the problems of not being hired in the 1950s because the wife of the chairman of the Berkeley math department said, well, I wouldn't want to see us hire somebody that I couldn't invite to my home.
This man refused to be a victim. And I'm telling you, man, if that's not motivation for the rest of us. I don't know what it is. This man refused to be a victim. I salute those brothers and sisters who are in society today who refuse to be labeled victims or come off as a victim. Gotta salute this man, give him his medals.
Yet, Jersey Neyman realized that David Blackwell was David Blackwell and did hire him over these awful people's dead bodies. But to try to get David to tell any story of that sort, he just wasn't a negative person.
My grandfather came to UC Berkeley in 1954.
From athletics to academics. All right, UC Berkeley, 1954, California.
That was the same year that the Brown versus the Board of Education came down, 1954. And my grandparents are driving across the country with their 7 kids with the Green Book. There was this book that they had to use to get across the country. So,
how many of you guys are familiar with the Green Book? In fact, there was a movie done on that particular book. I don't recall the name of the movie, but that was a real thing, the Green Book. Wow.
they knew where they could sleep, safe places that they could sleep. Then when he got here, he wasn't offered the customary hospitality. And so he went and they didn't have housing. They slept in Tilden Park for 2 months. Wow, and he would go commute and teach at the school. 7 children.
When we traveled, and we did travel a lot in the car, in the station wagon, when we would travel, he would have a map and he would give each of us a map, and he would have gasoline estimates, time estimates for how long it was going to take us, estimates for how long we go to the bathroom, estimates for what the traffic was going to be. But along the way, he kept us all engaged at our own level. And it was remarkable to have children 10 years apart, one is very young, the other one is much more mature, and still keep them all engaged. They somehow felt equal to the challenge. It was just reflective of his considerate manner of teaching.
Your I'm say this. This has to be inspiring. I think this is one of my, or the most inspiring piece I've done thus far. Again, man, the vibe, man, is just electric, man. Just listening to this, it's my hope that, man, you viewers who check this out also get that vibe, man. Connect with this piece. Again, it just shows, man, not just our determination, but our excellence. What we not only our attributes, that get siphoned off and or claimed by others, man, but our contributions to civilization, to society. I just think this is a deep piece.
Grandfather was the most delightful, friendly, warmest.
All the years I had heard people talk about David Blackwell, they never talked about him being angry or bitter. Most importantly, they never talked about him saying anything negative about anyone else. And that, I think, truly is a testament to his character. That's what I strive to do, is to really say, maybe things have happened negatively, but let me not try to dwell on that. Let me try to move forward to say, what are positive things that are happening and what are ways that I can make this world a better place?
Or how can I extract some positivity, man, from negativity? There's this thing, there's such a thing as being pessimistic or pessimism, but there's also optimistic and optimism. And I think, for those of us who dwelled in that realm of pessimism or being pessimistic, there's also a light at the end of that tunnel that affords us the ability to visualize, to see that light as optimism or as being optimistic, you know. I don't know.
You have arrived at a developers conference. There will be a lot of science described, algorithms, computer architecture, mathematics.
In March last year, NVIDIA unveiled its most ambitious GPU architecture. We named it Blackwell in honor of Dr. Blackwell.
There's a contract most retail traders have never heard of. It's called XSP.
Today, we're witnessing the dawn of the AI era, and the Blackwell architecture is the engine that's powering this new industrial revolution. We strive each day to honor Dr. Blackwell's remarkable legacy by bringing the promise of AI to industries, developers, and researchers worldwide.
Specific.
I made a comment just recently about AI's role in our future, and especially when it comes to employment, especially that type of employment that requires labor, warehouse work, construction, you know, those sorts of things, even fast food. AI will supplant human beings in those positions. It's a given. It's a given. And this is why especially AI, it's in our DNA to map this thing even farther. But not only that, but to be or to have a place in its development, growth, and placing or the placing of it in society. We're capable of doing just that.
To African Americans, I would say, don't consider your race as a handicap. If you want to go in a direction, go in that direction. In other words, make decisions on the same basis as if you were Chinese or white or anything else. Don't worry so much about race. It's going to be a factor, but let other people worry about it. Don't you worry about it.
I just said last night on a clip for All Things Positive in regards to Black people and the racism we endure or we go through from every, you know, other ethnicity. I made the statement that, okay, yeah, there's that. So what? So what? Allow them, let them do what they're going to do. Let them be how they're going to be. Our focus shouldn't be on what they're tripping on and what they're going through. Our focus should be on doing what we need to do to make it to that point that really would describe what our purpose is. Once we arrive at this point or at that place, and if you see fit, if you think that it's the thing for you to do, then you can address that and say, here I am. Where are you? Here's my contribution. Where's yours? You know?
David Blackwell was the epitome of excellence. We
Black people are the epitome of excellence.
had a booth at a math conference. An individual walked by. He wasn't a Black mathematician. He pauses at the table, looks at the picture of Blackwell and is very confused, and then says, you know, I'm a statistician, but that picture can't be right. David Blackwell wasn't Black. So I asked him, so how are you convinced that he wasn't Black? And he said, well, there's this Blackwell-Rao theorem, and it's an amazing theorem. It just never crossed my mind that Blackwell could be Black.
That's the racism. That's the racism, that we aren't capable of anything other than what they project on us and then what we project outwardly back to them. Just as a result of how we're seen, we pretend to project that back, you know? So there's no way in the world a Black man could have been the mind behind the Rao theorem. Crazy.
So imagine if David Blackwell didn't have to be hidden 50 years ago. If he wasn't hidden 50 years ago, what would STEM look like today? What's it going to look like tomorrow if we don't uphold his face and those like him?
1 second, everybody. Yeah, that is. All right. Yeah. If he wasn't hidden away 50 years ago, probably longer, I'm sure longer than that, what would STEM look like today in society? And not only that, but who would be the face of it, And for those who don't know, STEM, STEM, is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I want to send a shout out to Al Thomas, who brought this issue up just recently on another podcast of ours, a channel called Under the Groove Podcast. Please go and, subscribe, like, share, comment, subscribe to that podcast. But Al mentioned STEM being one of the things that needs to be at the forefront in terms of in our community, in terms of what the children, what our people need to be studying. To hear it here gives it credence. It validates the statement, And again, thank you for that, Al Thomas. Exceptional, man. Exceptional. I'd like to, again, extend mine to Earn Your Leisure podcast for that clip. I think this was a very insightful clip. And like I said, it was full of energy, positive energy. And for those who understand what I mean, you'll get it. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't to All Things Politics. Again, I'm your host, Bub. It's been a pleasure. Take care of yourselves and each other.